Thaumaturge. 240-ish is my time on it. Thaumaturge. The Thaumaturge has seen every monster and knows every secret, supplementing their skill at arms and ability to strike a monster's weakness with a myriad of supernatural trinkets and mystic implements that can fill a wide range of roles. The Thaumaturge is a versatile agent who can contribute to any team facing the unknown. Thaumaturge. So, key ability is Charisma. And only Charisma. You're only a Charisma user here. Hit points is 8 plus your Con mod. So you are in that middling hit point area with the Magus and the Investigator and the Inventor. Rogue. Does Bard have 6? I don't remember. So yeah, you're middle HP growth. You're an expert in perception out of the gate. Expert in fortitude and will. Trained in reflex. And you are trained in Arcana, Nature, Occultism, and Religion. So all 4 knowledge skills. And you're trained in a number of additional skills equal to 3 plus your int mod. Minimally 7 skills out of the gate. Probably 8 or 9 skills out of the gate. Adding up those 4. The 4 knowledges plus your 3. You're probably going to have an int or 2, in all honesty, to get more. Pretty good skill loadout out of the gate. You're trained in simple, martial, and unarmed stuff, and your defenses are trained in light, medium, and unarmored defense, and obviously trained in your class DC. So, Thaumaturge is a martial. They have the martial growth, or their growth is a little different than the mages, but for defense. But yeah, you have a good chunk of skills, and you're trained in simple and martial, trained in light and medium armor. So yeah, you're more of a martial out of the gate than anything else. I'd probably lump it together with the Investigator and maybe Inventor and Rogue. You're sort of a combat capable skiller. You have a lot of items you can use too. So let's jump into the class and I'll explain those. So no spell casting. It is not a caster. It's a martial. So we don't have any spell casting rules or tweaks to go over. So you start with an ability called Esoteric Lore. Your experience with the unknown, as well as the tales you've exchanged with other thaumaturges, has taught you about strange phenomena of every kind. You become trained in Esoteric Lore, a special lore skill that can be used to recall knowledge regarding haunts, curses, and creatures of any type, but it can't be used to recall knowledge of other topics. Unlike a normal lore skill, you use Charisma as your modifier on Esoteric Lore checks instead of Intelligence, and you get the Dubious Knowledge skill feat. Hang on a sec. I've never actually taken the skill feat, so I don't know what it does. At 3rd level, you become Expert in Esoteric Lore. 7th, you become Master. 15th, you become Legendary. Dubious Knowledge. You're a treasure trove of information, but not all of it comes from reputable sources. When you fail, but don't critically fail, a recall knowledge check using any skill, you learn a bit of true knowledge and a bit of erroneous knowledge, but you don't have any way to differentiate which is which. It's a little more on the role-playing, flavorful side of things. But yeah, it's part of what the character is, honestly. So your first feature is your Esoteric Knowledge. So not only do you have the actual knowledges, all 4 of them trained up, you get this special esoteric thing that you can use similarly. You don't level it up with your skill increases. It levels up on its own. And we'll get into why you have Esoteric Lore with the upcoming features. So your first implement, an Esoterica. Your implement is a special object of symbolic importance. Your badge, as you treat with the supernatural, and a powerful tool if things turn violent. Choose an implement from the options presented on page 36. Amulet, bell, chalice, lantern, mirror, regalia, tome, wand, weapon. You begin play with a mundane item of that type, and you gain the initiate benefit for that implement. While an implement is useful to you, it is typically of no value if sold. If you acquire a new object of that same general implement type, you can switch your implement to the new object by spending 1 day of downtime with the new item. As you advance as a Thaumaturge, you will collect up to 3 implements and unlock the hidden potential stored within each, so you can mix and match their benefits to suit your situation. While your implements are your primary tools in your dealings with the supernatural, you know the value of always being prepared. You constantly collect and carry various small mystic objects, bits of materials with paranormal affinities, and items used in folk practices. Your Esoterica. These might include cold iron nails, scraps of scrolls and scriptures, fragments of bones purportedly from a saint, and other similar objects. You keep your Esoterica in easy-to-access places on your person and are well practiced in brandishing your implement and Esoterica together, so you can draw and use your Esoterica with the same hand you're using to wield an implement. So, this class has 2 things going on. Esoterica and implements. Implements are their very active item thing that you are utilizing. Your Esoterica is like, it's the crap in your pockets that your weird ass carries around. And your esoteric lore will feed into your Esoterica as we go through. So, exploit vulnerability. This is kind of a meat and potatoes ability, unrelated to your implements for the Thaumaturge. So, you know that every creature, no matter how obscure, has a weakness. By identifying and empowering the right object, you can strike down even the most resilient of monsters. You gain the Exploit Vulnerability action. So, 1 action, Esoterica, manipulate Thaumaturge. Once per round, you are holding your implement. You scour your experiences and learning to identify something that might repel your foe. You retrieve an object from your Esoterica with the appropriate supernatural qualities. Then, use your implement to stroke the remnants of its power into a blaze. Select a creature you can see and attempt an Esoteric Lore check against a standard DC of its level as you retrieve the right object from your Esoterica and use your implement to empower it. You gain the following effects until you exploit vulnerabilities again. So you roll your Esoteric Lore check. On a critical success, you remember the creature's weaknesses, and as you empower your Esoterica, you have a flash of insight that grants even more knowledge about the creature. You learn all of the creature's resistances, weaknesses, and immunities, including the amounts of resistances and weaknesses and any unusual weaknesses or vulnerabilities, such as what spells will pass through a golem's anti-magic. You can exploit either the creature's mortal weakness or personal antithesis. See below. Your unarmed and weapon strikes against the creature also become magical if they weren't already. On a success, you recall an important fact about the creature, learning its highest weakness, or one of its highest weaknesses if it has multiples of the same value, but not its other weaknesses, resistances, or immunities. You can exploit either the creature's mortal weakness or personal antithesis. Those are down below. We'll get to them in a second. If you fail the check, failing to recall a salient weakness about the creature, you instead attempt to exploit a more personal vulnerability. You can exploit only the creature's personal antithesis. Your unarmed and weapon strikes against a creature also become magical if they weren't already. That's, I think, on all 3 of the things here. The critical success, and failure can all do that. If you critically fail, you couldn't remember the right object to use, or you become distracted while rummaging through your Esoterica. You become flat-footed until the beginning of your next turn. So when you do this, You can attempt to exploit vulnerabilities in one of two ways, either by invoking properties that repel that type of creature, or by attempting a more improvisational, ad hoc method using your Esoterica that can impose a custom weakness on any creature, albeit one that usually isn't as dire as the creature's existing weaknesses. So with your critical success or success, you can do either of these. If you fail, you do the personal antithesis. On board so far? Okay. So, mortal weakness. After identifying a creature's weakness, you use a thematically resonant bit of Esoterica to attune your attacks to your discovery. Your unarmed and weapon strikes activate the highest weakness you've discovered with exploit vulnerability, even though the damage type of your weapons doesn't change. This damage affects the target of your exploit vulnerability, as well as any other creatures of the exact same type, but not other creatures with the same weakness. For example, if you're fighting a pack of werewolves, you might use silver shavings or crushed moonstone to deal damage that applies their weakness to silver to your attacks against any of the werewolves, but you won't apply this damage to any other monsters with the weakness to silver. So your personal antithesis, you improvise a custom weakness on a creature by forcefully presenting and empowering a piece of Esoterica that repels it on an individual level. The word level confused me there. I was like, level? What? Levels? Oh, no, it's not mechanical level. Anyways, for instance, against a tyrant, you might procure a broken chain that once held it captive. This causes the target creature, and only the target creature, to gain a weakness against your unarmed and weapon strikes equal to 2 plus half your level. So, basically, what you got here with your Esoterica and your Esoteric Lore, you have the ability to just figure out exactly what a creature is weak to. If something has a weakness to fire, you can figure that out. Pass that information on to your party. Suddenly your alchemist is like, yay, I can bomb it really good. So Thaumaturge is like, big thing it's going to be doing a lot of outside of its implements is going to be finding the weaknesses of creatures. So even if you fail this, you still can just give it a little weakness for you, so you can deal more damage to it. Of course, if you critically fail, you're flat-footed. Not optimal. Not game-ending either. So it's a really strong ability, provided you're able to nail that lore check. And this is why, and I think the main thing you want out of that charisma is you still want your charisma at like 16, because you still want to be able to nail these lore checks to get the exploit vulnerability going as this character. There are a lot of other things in the class, too, which we'll get to with the implements. So while this is a main thing, it's not like the only thing the class does. It's not a exploit weakness spot, right? So it makes me think of Monster Hunter, because weakness exploit is like the main skill of Monster Hunter. But it's completely different how it works. Anyways, key terms for this class, we have Esoterica. The Esoterica trait is present in many Thaumaturge feats and class features that incorporate the various talismans, supernatural trinkets, and other objects you carry on you. Abilities that have the Esoterica trait require you to be in possession of your Esoterica to use them. Normally, you're assumed to always have your Esoterica with you, but in some rare circumstances, you might either not have them on hand or have your gear stripped from you. That's just that little rule of we were captured and put in a cell, I can't use my Esoterica stuff. But while you're adventuring, you probably just always have it on you, all over your character. I mean, it's Wayne Reynolds art, so it's like, you wait, where's the art? You're covered in stuff, and that stuff is your Esoterica. Temporary items. Several feats allow you to prepare temporary items. Much like infused items created by alchemists, these temporary items last only a short time before becoming useless. Temporary items are clearly not up to the same quality as other items, so they typically can't be sold. If an ability doesn't list how long a temporary item lasts, the item lasts until the next time you make your daily preparations. Any effect created by a temporary item also ends at that time if it hasn't already, unless it's a permanent effect. So this class has scrolls and talismans as part of it. And kind of the summary before we get going, because I did read through the class. I actually went through everything in this class. Well, not everything, but I went through the class kind of more in depth than I did with the psychic a bit. It's an item class. It's an item class, which is why I said it was kind of inventory, because the inventor is a very item-heavy class. But this is more of like pseudo magic items, where the inventor is more like tech and the schizoid steampunky tech that Pathfinder has. This is more like, it's not magic when it's, it's magic. So yeah, implements empowerment. The power of your implement can also be turned to more common tasks of combat. Its power adding and amplifying effects of runes and other magical empowerments. When you strike, you can trace mystical patterns with an implement you're holding to empower the strike, causing it to deal 2 additional damage per weapon damage die. Channeling power requires full use of your hands. You can't gain the benefit of the implement's empowerment if you're holding anything in either hand other than a single one-handed weapon, other implements, or esoterica, and you must be holding at least one implement to gain the benefit. So this is a kind of restriction on the character a bit, in that you have your implement, and your esoterica is generally going to be in for me it'd be this hand. So you'd have all your I wish I actually had a bowl of stuff that I could just pick up and be like, this is my esoterica, and it's just random things. But you would have your esoterica in one hand and your weapon in the other. You can, do your little symbology with your one hand and then strike and you get bonus damage. So in general, the character isn't going to be doing a lot of wielding a battle axe. It's going to have the one hand weapon, free hand for your implement, and esoterica. So the basics for that out of the way. Rest of the class boosting is fairly standard. You get a second implement at 5th level. You get an adept ability for one of your 2 implements at 7th level. You get Intensify Vulnerability at 9th level. So Intensify Vulnerability, prerequisites is Exploit Vulnerability. Once per round, single action. So the requirements are you're benefiting from Exploit Vulnerability. You can see the subject, and you haven't used the Exploit Vulnerability this round. So you present your implement and esoterica again, intensifying their effects on the target in a way unique to your implement. You gain the Intensified Vulnerability benefit from one of the implements you're holding, which lasts until the beginning of your next turn. So we'll get to what those are when we get to the implements. But at 9th level, you gain a special intensifier for your weakness exploiting. You get Master Perception, which is not bad. The big interesting thing about this class is you get legendary will saves very early. Or is it just Master? Wait. No, yeah. You get legendary will saves at 13. Which is pretty interesting that you get them that early. So you kind of get the best will save growth in the game out of this character. You get your second adept. Your second implement gets its adept ability at 11. You get your third implement at 15. Then you get your Paragon implement ability at 17. So basically you have 3 implements in the long run. One, you go through the trained expert mastery effectively. The second one is trained and expert. And the third one is just trained. There is a feat, though, that will let you get the expert ability for your third implement at the end of the character class. And then at 19th level, the sort of special ability you get, you can use Exploit Vulnerability and Intensify Vulnerability as a free action rather than a single action. Though you can still only do it once per round. Whew. Okay. Implements. So there are a lot of these, and they all have that same pattern of Initiate, Adept, Intensify, Paragon. Each one's also themed. So they're all going to do something within this, like, circle of sphere of things it does. So amulets are protective. Your Initiate benefit is Amulet's Abeyance. So it's a reaction. The trigger is the target of your exploit vulnerability would damage you or an ally within 15 feet of you. So you have to get that success on your exploit weakness thing going. And you're holding your amulet and are benefiting from the exploit vulnerability. You forcibly present your amulet to turn away harm. You, or the target ally within 15 feet, gain resistance to all damage against the triggering damage. The resistance is equal to 2 plus your level. Just out of the gate, just a really strong ability where you have that. We're going to say werewolf because they used werewolf as an example. That's going to claw one of your allies. You raise that amulet up in response to it. Ally gets damage reduction against just everything that werewolf is going to do to it. Just, I think it's out of the gate a really great ability just to point out what the character can do. Adept, your amulet offers continued protection. When you use Amulet's Abeyance, you or your ally chooses one type of damage dealt by the triggering attack and gains resistance 5 against that damage type until the start of your next turn. At 15th level, this lingering resistance increases from 5 to 10. So the Abeyance is off of that one instance of damage. The Adept ability is 5 reduction till the start of your next turn. Or 10 later on. So the Intensify Vulnerability, your amulet repels the creature's attempts to harm you. You get your +2 status bonus to AC and saves against the target of your exploit vulnerability. So when you do that extra little action to intensify the vulnerability, that's the benefit you gain. So Paragon Benefit, your amulet provides sanctuary against wide-scale attacks. When you use Amulet's Abeyance, that you target yourself and all allies within 15 feet. Each target gains both the initial resistance against the triggering damage and the lingering resistance from your amulet's Adept benefit. All allies gain the lingering resistance even if they would not have taken any of the initial triggering damage. If the foe's attack deals multiple damage types, each target can separately choose the damage type to gain lingering resistance against. So at 17th level, you get your you hold up your amulet and everyone gets in that bubble of damage reduction. Very, very solid and easy to understand example of what this class is kind of oriented towards. You have your magic items and you're like, I'm protecting everyone with my magic amulet, and you're holding that up and you're like, no werewolf shooting fireball, and like, you know, everyone gets that protection. So next up is the bell. The bell symbolizes the power that sounds and emotions hold over others, soothing with one tone, startling with another. So bells are all ringling a ding ding based. So the Initiate benefit, you can use your bell implement to create 3 different kinds of music, each of which weakens a foe in a different way. So you get the ring a bell activity. It's a reaction. The target of your exploit vulnerability makes a strike or cast a spell that would affect you or one of your allies. Your requirement is that you're holding your bell and that the triggering creature is within 30 feet of you. Your implement sings out abruptly, disrupting your foe. The piece played depends on whether the trigger was a strike or spell, and it applies to the triggering strike or spell, except where noted otherwise. So, distracting Cacophony, the trigger is the spell. You create a musical crash of sonic energy that assails the target and breaks its concentration. The target must succeed at a fortitude save against your class DC or become stupefied 1 until your next turn, stupefied 2 on a critical failure. The target doesn't have to attempt a flat check to avoid losing the triggering spell, but the discordant ring does lower the spell attack roll or DC of the triggering spell from stupefied. Great spell disruption, even though it doesn't like counter the spell, or it's not like an attack of opportunity where it breaks concentration. So Disrupting Harmony, this triggers the strike. You create a strangely discordant harmony that sinks into your foe's mind and throws off its movements. Target must make a will save, in this case, against your class DC, or become Enfeebled 1 or Clumsy 1, your choice, until the end of your next turn, up to 2 on a critical failure. So you have another defensive option here. This is more of an active defense, where you create an effect that can stop a spell or strike. With Adept, the effect lasts 3 rounds instead of 1 round. The Intensify Vulnerability. Your reinforced spell can reach into the most basal part of the target's mind, priming it to be vulnerable to the bell's effects. When you successfully strike the target of your exploit weakness, your bell implement plays a haunting tone. The creature takes a -2 status penalty on saves against your ring bell for 1 round, or -3 on a critical hit. This effect has the auditory, motion, mental traits. Basically, you whack an enemy and your bell is clanging. Makes it easier to ring the bell against them. Your Paragon Benefit, with your mastery of your bell, you can affect many foes. All the condition values for ring the bell increase from 2 to 3, or to 2 or 3 on a critical failure. And ring bell can trigger off of a strike or spell of any enemy, not just the target of your exploit vulnerability. However, in that case, the condition lasts only until the start of your next turn. Just let you do more bell ringing. So the Chalice is heal-based. The Initiate ability is Drink from the Chalice. It is a single action you can do once per round. Requires you're holding your chalice. You drink from the liquid that slowly collects in your chalice or administer it to an ally. The drinker chooses whether to take a small sip or drain the contents. So, a sip grants the drinker an amount of temporary hit points equal to 2, plus half your level that lasts until the end of your next turn. They can drain it, in which case, it's a healing, positive effect. Drinking deep instead heals the drinker 3 points for each level you have. After the chalice is drained, it's left with only its slowly collecting dregs. The chalice can't be drained again, though it can still be sipped from. If 10 minutes pass without anyone drinking from the chalice, it refills itself and can be drained again. If the drinker has negative healing, it can still heal in this way, and the effect has the negative trait instead of the positive trait. So that the Dhampir Edgelord player who refuses to play anything normal, you can actually heal them in this case. But yeah, you can either give a tiny bit of temporary hit points, or the person can just quaff it down and get a chunk of health back. And it's a fixed chunk of health too. It's 3 per level. So, I mean, it's not a crazy amount of health back, but it is straight health back. I mean, that does kind of get a lot for a single action heal in the long run, though. And anyways, you have more things here. So the Adept Benefit, the life essence shed from blood, empowers your chalice. If you are an ally within 30 feet, takes piercing or slashing damage from a foe's critical hit, or takes persistent bleed damage. Drinking from the chalice before the end of your next turn grants the injured creature greater restoration to make up for its lost vitality. On a sip, the temporary hit points granted to the creature increase to 2, plus your charisma modifier plus your level. When drained, the chalice heals the creature for 5 hit points for each level you have. So basically, sort of in response to getting hit harder, you can heal harder. The Intensify Vulnerability. Your reinforced chalice can collect a creature's life force to become empowered. If you succeed at a strike against the target of your exploit vulnerability, you increase the effect if someone drinks from the chalice before the end of that turn. Add an additional level, an additional half your level to the temporary HP the drinker sips. Add your level to the regained HP if the drinker drains it. This effect isn't cumulative if you hit more than 1 strike. Yeah, so you hit a creature and then give the chalice to your battle buddy. They can get more out of it. Or you get more out of it. Okay. Paragon Benefit, when you or an ally drain the Chalice, the overwhelming vitality it's collected helps you overcome many ailments. Reduce the drinker's clumsy, enfeebled, frightened, stupefied, or stunned values by 1. This reduces the stun condition only if the condition has a condition value, not when it's a duration. The drinker also reduces its drained value by 1, but it can reduce its drain condition by drinking. Oh, it can only reduce the drain condition by drinking once per day. In addition, the Chalice attempts to counteract all poisons, diseases, and curses affecting the drinker, using half your level rounded up as the counteract level and your class DC minus 10 as the counteract modifier. If the Chalice fails to counteract the given affliction for the drinker, it can't attempt to counteract the affliction again until midnight. So Paragon Benefit is its reduces effects. So yeah, so far you may have also noticed that even though this class has that martial core to it and has the exploit vulnerability, a lot of its abilities are support. So you kind of are ending up with a character that's like a non-magic martial supporter. So it's in this very unique role compared to other characters. So next up we have the Lantern, which is about revealing things. The Initiate Benefit. While you hold your lantern, its burning light leaves secrets no place to hide. You can light or extinguish your lantern as a free action once each turn with nothing but a thought, which has a concentrate trait. The lantern shines bright light out to 20 feet and dim light out to 20 feet further. This has the evocation, light, and magical traits. The counteract level against magical darkness is equal to half your level rounded up. Your lantern's magical light attempts to reveal the unseen. You and your allies in the lantern's area of bright light gain a +1 status bonus to visual perception checks to notice anything that is within the bright light, and a +1 status bonus to checks to recall knowledge against creatures within the bright light, so light exposes their true identities. During exploration, if you aren't searching, the GM rolls a secret check for you to find traps, environmental hazards, haunts, and secrets. The GM allows each... okay. That's a blah, 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 blah information. You see things a little better. Yeah, crossing the 3-hour mark is probably... probably should have divided this into 2 sessions. But yeah, whatever, I'm still going to go. We started it, and we're going to finish it, even if I get a little rambly and don't speak as clearly. So, the Adept Benefits for the Lantern. In addition to its Initiate benefits, when you hold your lantern, its light reveals the invisible and the ethereal. The bright light increases to 30 feet, and the dim light out 30 feet further. When you're holding your lantern, invisible and ethereal creatures within the bright light become visible as rippling distortions, though they're still concealed. This doesn't give you any special ability to affect the creature on the ethereal plane, but ensures you're aware of the creature's presence. The Intensify Vulnerability. Your lantern's light flares and burns bright, leaving no shadows in which secrets and enemies can hide. Against the target of your exploit vulnerability, the status bonus from your lantern's Initiate benefit increases to +2. The creature takes a -2 status penalty to deception checks and stealth checks as long as it's within the lantern's light. The creature can't be concealed while it's in the lantern's light, though it can potentially become hidden or undetected using cover or means other than the concealed condition. In your Paragon Benefit, finally, in addition to other benefits, your lantern reveals all things as they truly are. The bright light increases to 40 feet, dim light 40 feet further. While you're holding your lantern, the GM rolls a secret counteract check against any illusion or transmutation that comes within the lantern's bright light, but only for the purpose of determining whether you and others can see through it. And then there's some yada yada on that. But yeah, the lantern basically lets you get this AoE safety net of revealing things. It's kind of a situational implement. It's one of those, like, if the GM loves throwing that type of thing at you, or if you really want to take the lantern and the GM is in turn going to throw some of that stuff at you, you'll get a lot of benefit out of it. Otherwise, it's much more situational, I think, than the other 2 implements we've looked at. So, the Mirror. Mirror implements represent misdirection, illusion, and sleight of hand, bending and shifting a perspective and the way you look at things. So, the initiate benefits. You learn how to use your mirror to project another version of yourself whose realness is a matter of perspective. So you get mirror's reflection. Single action. You're holding your mirror. You reflect an illusory image of yourself into another unoccupied space within 15 feet of you that you can see. You're treated as being in both spaces until the start of your next turn. For example, you can attack, seek, and provide flanking even with yourself. You occupy both spaces. Your mirror self mimics your actions exactly, but any effects you generate come only from your positions. You decide which each time you act. Okay, yeah. So you can do anything, but it has to come from you or you. For example, if you made a melee strike against a creature within reach of your reflection, you'd mime the actions of the strike, but only the reflection would make the strike. Anything that targets or would affect your reflection affects you and uses your statistics. Something that would target or affect both of you affects only you once. And they give a fireball example. Some events force you to determine which image is the real you, and then end the effect and cause your mirror self to disappear. This happens automatically at the start of your next turn. It also happens if you choose to move out of your space. Oh. Other benefits of this implement add more events that can end the reflection. This effect also ends when you fall unconscious, at which point you must decide which version is truly you. You can get kind of silly with this one. But yeah, for the most part, you have the you and the reflection you. Yeah, I didn't know that if you moved, it just ends it. So you kind of have to root yourself down for this one. But, I mean, it's a single action. You can just redo it. It's not like it's a flourish, a weird-ass magic flourish or anything. So anyways, Adept Benefit. Your mirror self shatters into punishing shards when damaged. While mirror's reflection is in effect, when an enemy adjacent to one of your spaces damages you, that version of you explodes into mirror shards. This ends the mirror's reflection, establishing the remaining version as the real one, and deals slashing damage to all creatures in a 5-foot emanation around where your mirror self was. The damage is equal to 2 plus half your level, or the damage of the triggering attack, whichever is lower. You're immune to this damage. Damage of the triggering attack. Interesting. So your Intensify Vulnerability, reinforcing your mirror lets you play tricks on your enemies' senses as it bends light this way or that. You become concealed to the target of your exploit vulnerability as your mirror wraps or warps its perceptions. As normal for concealment, your overall location is obvious. You can't use this to hide or sneak. Paragon Benefit, you become so skilled at reflecting yourself that you can combine making a reflection with your other movements to act right away. When you use mirror's reflection, you can have one of yourselves immediately interact, seek, or strike. That's pretty cool. Again, that's like, that one now is like a more offensive one, while also being defensive, kind of. Setting up flanks with yourself is pretty funny. And then, like, the mirror shattering and dealing damage is also pretty funny to me. But yeah. It's also more wackadoo, and I always appreciate wackadoo. So, Regalia. Regalia implements represent rulership, leadership, and social connections. This is the stuff you're wearing or banners you're carrying, etc., etc. Your initiate benefit. While you're holding your regalia, you gain an air of authority and bolster the courage of your allies who believe in you. Your regalia aids you when you attempt to convince others. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to deception, diplomacy, and intimidation checks. Allies who can see you can use Follow the Expert to follow you even if you're only trained in a skill and not an expert due to the competence you clearly exude. When they do, the circumstance bonus they gain from following the expert is a +1. When you're holding your regalia, you gain an inspiring aura that stokes the courage of you and all allies and a 15-foot emanation who can see you, granting him a +1 status bonus to saves against fear effects. At the end of your turn, at the same time you would reduce your frightened condition value by 1, you reduce the frightened condition of all allies by inspiring aura by 1, aura has emotional, mental, visual traits. So, you basically have an era of authority in this case. Your social skills get a +1, and following the expert is a really cool ability in this game. And you basically are like, I'm an expert in everything. And everyone's like, okay, I believe you. You have a cool coat. So, Adept Benefit. Your Regalia's power increases, and so do the abilities it grants. The circumstance bonus you gain to Deception, Diplomacy, and Intimidation increases to +2, as long as you have Mastery proficiency in each skill. When others use to follow the expert to follow you, you grant them a +2 circumstance bonus if you're trained, +3 if you're expert, or +4 if you're master or legendary. The courage of your aura grows stronger. +1 status bonus against all mental effects rather than just fear. And your allies in the aura get a +2 status bonus to damage rolls. At 11th level, this increases to +3. 17th level, +4. Nice little support thing going on here where you can just give your allies free damage. It's like the Dread Martial stance from the Martial archetype, which incidentally goes great with the Thaumaturge. So the Intensify Vulnerability for Regalia. Your Regalia implement makes you seem more confident and inspiring with each success. Whenever you successfully strike the target of your exploit vulnerability, choose an ally that you can see. That ally gains a +1 circumstance bonus to its attack rolls against the creature until the beginning of your next turn. If the attack roll is a critical hit, circumstance bonus increases to +2. So again, another type of support from your Regalia. Paragon Benefit. Your Regalia grants you the true gravitas of rulership, tying together the hearts and minds of your allies and making it possible for you to leave a bad impression. If you roll a critical failure on a check to coerce, make an impression, or request, you get a failure instead. When others use follow the expert to follow you, you grant them a +3 circumstance bonus if you're trained, or +4 if you're expert and above. Allies in your inspiring aura aren't flat-footed from becoming flanked unless you are flanked too. If one of your allies in the aura is clumsy, enfeebled, frightened, sickened, or stupefied, that status penalty your ally takes from the condition is 1 lower than the condition value as long as the ally remains in the aura, unless you two are affected by the same condition. Whew, words that mean you're really good at convincing people of things. Your allies trust you and get a bonus out of trusting you. Again, it's another solidly good support bit from this class that can actually stack really well with the martial archetype. So Tome Knowledge, obviously. So Initiate Benefit. While you hold your tome, lines of text appear on the open pages, revealing useful information. While you hold your tome, you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to all skill checks to recall knowledge. During your daily preparations, you gain the trained proficiency rank in 2 skills of your choice until you prepare again. You retain the benefit as long as the tome is on your person, even if you aren't holding it. At 3rd level, you're expert in one of those skills and trained in the other. At 5th level, you're expert in both. Since these proficiencies are temporary, you can't use them as a prerequisite for a skill increase or a permanent character option like a feat. Out of the gate, I mentioned that you got the 4 knowledges, then 3 plus int. So you got like maybe 8 or 9 skills. Well, here's 10 or 11. That's almost all the skills in the game, by the way, that you can get trained up at the beginning. Getting an expert is pretty handy for getting those checks done. And because you can change them out every day, you can kind of do what elves can do with ancestral longevity and expert longevity, where you can kind of not game the game, but you can get your like, you're going out for the, I don't know, you're going out to do something that maybe is going to involve climbing and you're not trained in athletics. You can get that training in athletics going. Incidentally, that works pretty well with Regalia too, for extra follow the expert bonuses. Anyway, Adept Benefit. In addition to the initiate benefits, your tome inscribes insights into creatures that you can use to strike them down. While holding your tome at the start of your turn each round, attempt a check to recall knowledge about a creature of your choice that you're observing. If this check succeeds, you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to your next attack roll against that creature before the start of your next turn. You gain temporary skill proficiencies during your daily preparation. One is at expert proficiency, and the other is at master proficiency. At 9th level, you're master in both. It's pretty good, actually. The Intensify Vulnerability for the tome. Your tome's power not only reads a creature... Oh, and you get the +1 circumstance bonus to your attack rolls when you recall knowledge. Knowledge is power. So, Intensify Vulnerability. Your tome's power not only reads a creature's present, but even records its future actions. When you use Intensify Vulnerability, roll a d20 and set that result aside. At any time until the start of your next turn, you can use that d20 result you set aside for an attack roll to strike the target for exploit vulnerability instead of rolling a new d20. This is a fortune effect and really strong. This is the Investigator Stratagem here. Now, granted, the Investigator Stratagem has like other things with it, like the precision damage and the bonus int damage, instead of like dex strength. And it also requires a finesse weapon, I think. This is more like the stratagem you get from multi-classing with the Investigator. Still really good. Where you can just predict you can do a little prediction on your turn to figure out if you're hitting. This, though, the stratagem, Investigator Stratagem, when you roll that d20, if you strike, you have to use that dice. Which means if you roll low, you're not attacking that turn. This is an optional thing. Pretty not bad, actually. In addition to other benefits, Paragon Benefit, your tome's information alerts you to ambushes and attacks from your foes. While holding your tome, you can always roll a skill check for initiative against creatures or haunts using Esoteric Lore. If you do, you get a +3 circumstance bonus to your initiative roll. The initiate's benefits circumstance bonus roll to recall knowledge from holding your tome increases from 1 to 2. When you succeed at a recall knowledge check granted by the tome Adept Benefit, the bonus applies to all attack rolls you make before the start of your next turn, not just your next one. Lastly, you gain the temporary skill proficiencies. They're both legendary. Tome's really good. Free legendary skill checks. You use your Esoteric Lore for initiative. And you get a +3 to your initiative roll there. It's really, really good. I know it's level 17 by the time you get that, but still, that's just very, very solid. Its earlier benefits are pretty good too. But yeah, that last one is like, that's probably worth picking up Tome as maybe your second one, and then making it your main one. So Wand, this is about blasting. So the initiate benefit, your wand slowly collects ambient magic, which you can project at a foe in a barely controlled display of charged energy. When you gain this implement, choose whether your wand is attuned to cold, electricity, or fire. You gain the Fling Magic activity. So, 2 actions. You're holding your wand. You fling magical energy at the target, at a target within 60 feet, dealing damage equal to 1d4 plus your charisma modifier to the target, with a basic reflex save against your class DC. Damage of this type is selected when you gain your wand. At 3rd level, and every 2 levels thereafter, you increase the damage by 1d4. You can expend more energy than usual to boost the effect of Fling Magic, dealing d6s instead of d4s. After you do so, the wand takes 1d4 rounds to recharge, during which you can't boost the wand's damage, but you can continue to Fling Magic normally. If you critically hit with the strike, your wand recharges immediately as it draws power from the clash. Special, this activity has a trait corresponding to the damage type you selected. Okay, so Fling Magic is not a spell. It's magical, but it's not really a spell. It's an activity unto itself. So you can't use it with anything that requires you casting a spell, because it's Fling Magic. It's not cast a spell. But it kind of gives you like a pseudo warlock-like energy blast. So, like I said, this is about a thing that can blast. It's actually a solid sidearm worth of d6s plus your charisma modifier. So if you want something that gives you a very simple, straightforward, just ranged attack, you can pick up the wand. So the Adept Benefit, you gain versatility and additional benefits when you fire your wand. Not fling it, you're not actually throwing the wand. The range of Fling Magic increases to 120 feet. That's like Ray of Frost. You choose a second damage type from the list. Whenever you Fling Magic, you can select between either of your two damage types. And it also has an additional effect. Target fails its save. Oh, yeah, and it's also targeting a save. It's not AC. So it has that benefit, too. I mean, it's a reflex save every time, but yeah. Shoot at something big. Chances are you'll hit it better. Actually, you'll know what has the low reflex save that you can aim at. You're a freaking Thaumaturge. So anyways, cold damage, the target becomes chilled, taking a minus 10 foot status penalty to its speeds for 1 round. Electricity, the target is shocked, becoming flat-footed until the end of your next turn. That's great. Fire, the target catches flame, taking 1d10, 2d10 on critical failure, persistent fire damage. If you have the wand Paragon Benefit, this increases to 2d10 with 4d10 on critical failure. That's a lot of persistent damage you can potentially get on this thing, by the way. So yeah, all three of those are pretty solidly good. I'd probably go electricity fire. But yeah, all three are good. IMHO. Intensify Vulnerability. When you Fling Magic to damage the target of your exploit vulnerability, you deal additional damage to the creature equal to 1 plus the number of damage dice. So yeah, little weapon specialization bonus, I guess, on your wand there. Yeah, that's the ability I'm thinking of, I think. So, Paragon Benefit, your mastery of your wand grants you increased versatility, range, and area. The range of Fling Magic increases to 180 feet. You gain the ability to choose between all 3 damage types each time you use Fling Magic. When you Fling Magic, you can choose to target a single creature or affect all creatures in a 20-foot burst. It's more damage. I actually think this is one of those ones where I'd maybe pick it first or second. And then I would only care about getting the adaptability on it. I think I could actually see getting it third, but you get that third one so late. But yeah, I think I would consider this one a secondary pick. Because yeah, you get like the super long range fireball, but it's at like 17th level. I think like Tome and Regalia are great long-term ones. And maybe the amulet too. Wand, though, I would definitely consider working in to a Thaumaturge. And then finally, we have the weapon implement, which is related to battle, as you would expect. So the initiative benefits, your weapon trembles slightly in your hand, seeking out your foe's weaknesses to it and interrupting their actions. You gain the implement's interruption reaction. At 5th level, when you gain a Thaumaturge weapon expertise, your instinctive knowledge of your weapon implement also grants you the weapon's critical specialization effect. So the implement's interruption, the target of your exploit vulnerability uses a concentrate, manipulate, or move action, or leaves a square. During a move action, it's using requirements. You're holding your weapon implement and are benefiting from exploit vulnerability against the creature. The creature must be within your reach if you're wielding a melee weapon, or within 10 feet if you're wielding a ranged weapon. Your weapon senses movement or weakness and guides your hand to strike the foe. Make a strike. It is attack of opportunity with a very specific requirement. So you're following that, like, I'm not a fighter martial thing, and you get the I'm not a fighter attack of opportunity. So, Adept Benefit. When your implement lashes out at a foe, even a close miss brings the weapon close enough to do harm. When you use the implement's interruption and fail, but don't critically fail the strike, you deal 1 damage of the weapon's normal type, possibly applying any bonus damage due to the target's weakness. The Intensify Vulnerability for the weapon is a +2 status bonus to attack rolls against the target of your exploit vulnerability. And the Paragon Benefit, the way your implement connects to your foes, makes the attack's interruptions incredibly disruptive. You cannot disrupt a triggering action with a hit from implement's interruption. So you get the full attack of opportunity experience with the weapon implement. All right, that's like the class except for its feats. So, I would say my favorite implements are probably Amulet, Tome, and Regalia, depending on what you're doing with your Thaumaturge. I think Wand is pretty handy. Lantern is more specific, and Mirror is fun. But I think I'd want that more as a flavorful thing for a character than something where I'm like, this is my next, mechanical choice. I'm doing that for flavor purposes. But yeah, I think all of the implements are strong and have their own benefits to picking them. Hell, I would even consider something like the weapon one just to grab up the attack of opportunity and then never care about upgrading it. But yeah, I think it's a solid class all around, even without the feats, because you can basically customize it out with your implements. Do you want it to be more supportive? You can go Amulet and Chalice and Regalia. Do you want it to be more offensive? You can go Weapon and Wand and, well, Tome. Like, there's all sorts of mix and matching you can do here. And like I said at the start, the Thaumaturge is kind of more of an item class than really anything. And as we get into the feats here, you're going to see why I said that. So, let's see if I can do these in about 20 minutes. All right, so you do get a feat at level 1 because you don't have spellcasting. So you get from these options. Ammunition Thaumaturgy. You can reload while still holding your implement. Really solid ability, actually. And this gives you the ability to use ranged weapons because you can still hold that bow and your implements, and you can, fire the bow and stuff. Like, it doesn't actually require... Wait, can you? No, you have to be able to fire a bow. Because it specifically says arrows. Yeah, it just helps you work the character a bit more. So, diverse lore. Your wandering studies mean you've heard rumors or theories about almost every topic, though admittedly your sources aren't the most reliable. You can take a -2 penalty to your check to recall knowledge with Esoteric Lore to recall knowledge about any topic, not just usual topics available to Esoteric Lore. Additionally, when you succeed at your check to exploit a vulnerability, compare the result of your Esoteric Lore check to the DC to recall knowledge for that creature. If that number would be a success or critical success, you gain information as if you succeeded at recall knowledge. Basically, you're a knowledge bot. Oh, by the way, Tome, I don't think I said this during the Tome part. You can pick lore skills for that. So you can kind of game the lore system in the game by picking up weird lores. Like, do you need sailing lore? Because you're going on a boat? Pick up sailing lore. And you'll have that for that day. So this just lets you basically recall knowledge about everything, with a -2 penalty. That's more flavorful than mechanical to me. Still fun though. So, Divine Disharmony is probably one of my favorite feats now. So, yeah, from your collection of religious trinkets, you pull out 2 opposing divine objects, such as the religious symbols of 2 deities that are hated enemies, and combine them in a display that causes discordant clashes of divine energy that are especially distracting to the faithful. Roll your choice of a deception or intimidation check against the will DC of a creature you can see within 60 feet, with the following results. If the creature is particularly devoted to a deity, such as a cleric, celestial, monitor, fiend, or other creature with divine spells, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to your skill check. GM might determine yada yada. So, if you critically succeed that check, the creature is flat-footed to your attacks until the end of your next turn. If you succeed, the creature's flat-footed to your attacks until the end of your current turn. No failure problems. Basically, you're like here's a cross. Here's a symbol for Scientology. Ding! And it's like, everyone's like, did he just pull out a cross for Scientology and a cross and a symbol for Scientology? Oh god, he hit me with a sword. I really like that. It's like Bonmont, or I think there's one for occultism where it's like a disturbing knowledge where you just rattle off disturbing occult facts. Yeah, I really like the skill feats that are like that. I mean, I know it's not a skill feat, but it's like those. Okay, so you can get a familiar, which is pretty cool for a non-spellcaster. That's kind of pseudo-magical to get a familiar. Haunt Ingenuity. Your cunning knowledge grants you the ability to notice the emotional echo of a soul that passed on, leaving a haunt in its wake. Even when you aren't searching while in exploration mode, the GM rolls a secret check for you to notice haunts. Usually require you to search. You can disable haunts that require master proficiency. So that's a very flavorful one to me. It's related to haunts, and your campaign may or may not encounter those. If you do pick that and you want to play that, like, you could theoretically have a GM who's going to give you haunts to counteract and interact with. But yeah, that's definitely something that's more on that flavor side versus mechanical side. Root to life. 1 or 2 actions. Marigold, Spider Lily, Pennyroyal. Many primal traditions connect flowers and plants with the boundary between life and death, and you can leverage this association to keep an ally on this side of the line. You place a small plant or similar symbol on an adjacent. I was like, you place it next to them on an adjacent dying creature, immediately stabilizing them. The creature is no longer dying and is instead unconscious at 0 hit points. If you spend 2 actions instead of 1, you can empower the act further by uttering a quick folk blessing to chase away ongoing pain, adding the auditory trait to the action. When you do, attempt flat checks to remove each source of persistent damage affecting the target due to the particularly effective assistance. The DC is 10 instead of 15. It's stabilize, but a feat. So that can be really handy. Death happens, you can help prevent it. Now, here's where we get into something where if I were going to play a Thaumaturge, I'd probably start picking this stuff up. So, Scroll Thaumaturgy. Your multidisciplinary study of magic means you know how to activate the magic in scrolls with ease. You can activate scrolls of any magic tradition using your Thaumaturge class DC for the scroll's DC, rather than a particular spell DC. If a spell is on the spell list for multiple traditions, you choose which tradition to use at the time you activate the scroll. You can draw and activate scrolls with the same hand holding an implement, much like you can for Esoterica. Yeah, here's where we get into the, I can actually come up with pseudo spell casting now. And like I said, item class. And that's one of the things where it's like, this is an item classy thing where we can just use scrolls to get more versatility out of this character. It's admittedly pretty versatile to begin with. We have another one coming up that's not on screen yet, but we'll get to it. So second level, we have Call Implement. You can call Implement from far away. It teleports into your hand. Enhanced Familiar. That familiar you gain at level 1. Make it better. Esoteric Warden. So prerequisites, exploit vulnerability. When you apply antithetical material against a creature successfully, you also ward yourself against its next attacks. When you succeed at your exploit or vulnerability, you gain a +1 status bonus to your AC against the creature's next attack, +1 status bonus to your next saving throw against the creature. If you critically succeed, these are 2s. You can gain the bonuses only once per day against a particular creature, and the benefit ends if you use Exploit Vulnerability again. So this adds defense to Exploit Vulnerabilities offense. And Talisman Esoterica. This is the other item-y thing that could result in a lot of versatility on a character, in addition to what it has already. So, you know how to assemble the supernatural objects in your Esoterica into a number of temporary talismans. Each day during your daily preparations, you make 2 talismans with an item level no higher than half your level. You must know each talisman's formula. A talisman created this way is a temporary item, loses its magic the next time you make your daily preparations. You know the formulas for all common talismans in the core rulebook of your level or lower. You remember your talisman formulas through oral, tradition, and mnemonic, so you don't need a formula book. So yeah, talismans are okay. Free talismans are great. So, free talismans with those free scrolls. Oh wait, we didn't get to free scrolls yet. That's later on. Anyways, spoiler alert, free scrolls are coming up. So, turn away Misfortune as a reaction. You would attempt a roll that while you're affected by Misfortune effect. You basically ignore a Misfortune effect and can roll normally. But you can't apply fortune to it, I think. Anyway, so breach defenses, exploit vulnerability. You can find 1 weak point in a creature's scales, wards, or armor to get past its resistances. When you succeed at exploit vulnerability, you learn about the highest of the creature's resistances that can be bypassed. For example, if the creature has resistance to physical damage except silver. If the creature has one. If you prefer, you can choose the following benefit instead of the usual 2 benefits from exploit vulnerability. So instead of the mortal breach or the personal antithesis, you can do breach defenses. Was it mortal weakness? Not mortal breach, whatever. Breach defenses. You can choose this benefit only if you succeed at exploit vulnerability and learn the creature has at least 1 resistance that can be bypassed. Choose 1 such resistance. Your unarmed and weapon strikes bypass the chosen resistance. Yep. Just another way to get that weakness in there. So Instructive Strike. You attack your foe and analyze how it reacts. Make a strike. On hit, you can immediately attempt to recall knowledge check. On crit, you get +2 bonus to it. I think the Magus has this. It's Magus Analysis. Or is it Knowledge is Power? Whatever. The hit gain knowledge thing. A lot of classes have that. So Paired Link. This is kind of funny. You break a trinket, such as a lodestone or a jade pendant, into creating a sympathetic link between the halves that bridges distance. During your daily preparations, you perform a short ceremony where you gift 1 of the 2 halves of your friendship necklace to a willing ally. On that ally, you can cast spells and use Thaumaturge abilities that have a range of touch at a range of 30 feet instead. And an ally can cast spells that have a range of touch from you from a range of 30 feet. These effects last as long as you and the ally have their half. If either half leaves either your position for even a moment, or you establish a link with a new ally during daily preparations, the link breaks. So yeah, your ally could do that familiar touch spell source thing. This is actually more of a prerequisite for something much later, too. And Thaumaturgic Ritualist. Your studies into the supernatural have resulted in especially strong knowledge of rituals. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to all primary checks to perform a ritual. You learn 2 uncommon rituals with a level no higher than half your level. You must meet all prerequisites for the ritual is used. You cast these 8th level, 4 levels thereafter. You learn another uncommon. So you get ritual casting, even though you're not a caster. 6th level. 1 more activation. You forged a deeper bond with your invested items, allowing you to activate them more than usual. Once each day, you can activate an item you've invested even after you've used the activation the maximum number of times for its frequency. You can do so only if the item's level is half your level or lower, the activation has a frequency of once per day or more frequent, and you haven't already used the activation this round. So when I said the class is very item-oriented, this is another layer of that. You have the Talismans, the Scrolls, and your Implements and your Esoterica. Throw invested items in there too, and you can activate them more often. And here's Scroll Esoterica. Thing I spoiled a bit. Your Esoterica includes scraps of scriptures, magic items, druidic markings, and the like, and you can use those to create temporary scrolls. Each day during your daily preparations, you can create a single temporary scroll containing a first level spell of any tradition. Spell must be common, blah, 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 8th level. You get a second temporary scroll containing a 2nd level spell. Very cool. You basically get free scrolls that you can cast from. Get that True Strike in there for free each day, on top of all the other weakness exploiting abilities you have. Okay, so Sympathetic Vulnerabilities. You have to have exploit weakness with mortal weakness or personal antithesis. When you apply your will to invoke a vulnerability, the result is more powerful, and the vulnerability ripples out in a web from your main target to affect a broader range of creatures. This has one of two effects based on the type of vulnerability you invoked. While you have the mortal weakness applied, your strikes also apply that weakness against any creature that has that weakness, not just creatures of the exact same kind. And to give an example, when you have your personal antithesis applied to a non-humanoid creature, you can apply your custom weakness to all creatures of the exact same kind. Let me give an example. So basically, when mortal weakness said, like, it only applies, like, across werewolves, not across things vulnerable to silver. Well, now you have vulnerability to silver as an option. And your personal antithesis now applies to all werewolves, by example. I don't know if that's a must pick. It's really solidly good, though. So Cursed Effigy. 1 action. Exploit vulnerability. Requirements. Your last action was a successful strike against the target of your exploit vulnerability, and the strike dealt physical damage. After your attack, you grab a bit of blood, cut hair, or other piece of the creature's body. You incorporate that material into a pre-made doll, paper figure, or other effigy to create a sympathetic link that makes it harder to resist your abilities. As long as you're exploiting vulnerability against that creature, it takes a -2 status penalty to saving throws against Thaumaturge abilities or items that use your Thaumaturge DC. Such as your scrolls. It's pretty solid for this whole let's build a pseudo item using caster thing. So, elaborate Talisman Esoterica. You create 4 talismans instead of 2. And if you can select this feat a second time if you're 14th level or higher. You create 6 instead of 4. You also have the option for an incredible familiar. Eat that witch. By the way, this class feels more like a witch than the witch does. Just saying. So, know it all. Having heard every rumor or story in the book, you know that if you've heard something in the first place, you've probably heard about it at length. When you succeed at a check to recall knowledge, you gain additional information and context. You better recall knowledge. It's a roleplay thing, I think, more than mechanical. Well, roleplay. It's a roleplay thing in my mind more than mechanical thing. All right, 10th level. Right. Share weakness. Single action. Exploit vulnerability. Mortal weakness. You're exploiting a creature's vulnerability using mortal weakness. You select an object from your Esoterica that has great personal value to you, such as a locket or treasured ring, and you grant it to an ally, establishing a personal link that allows your ally to affect an enemy as though they were you. The ally strikes apply the weakness from your mortal weakness in the same way your strikes do. So when it ends, when your exploit weakness ends, or you share weakness again. That's fantastic. I mean, you're already like helping out your bomber alchemists, your weapon inventors, your maybe mages is so inclined, and other blasts. Oh, your psychics that are using cold and fire. Your oscillating wave psychics. You're helping out your allies that have these, like, let's hit some weaknesses. Now you just give that ally the ability to mortal weakness? Frick yeah. That's good. That's solidly good. Hey, what the hell? I'm getting a text from friends about playing video games. They want to play Left 4 Dead. I'm gonna say, give me like 10, 15 minutes to finish the stream I'm doing. Because I am a professional who would ignore his phone to continue reading the game stuff. All right, so Thaumaturge Investiture. You need 16 charisma. Magical equipment and gear are the tools of your trade, and you need as many as possible to help against the supernatural. You gain the incredible investiture skill feat, increasing your limit on invested items from 10 to 12. That's actually not bad. Free general feat that's pretty good for charisma people. What drives this into the stratosphere and makes it really good too, kinda. The limit increases to 14 when you have 18 charisma, 16 with 20, 18 with 22, and 20 with 24. This is really good if you're in like a magic item heavy campaign, because you can just wear a ton of crap, hold a ton of crap, invest in all sorts of things, and suddenly you have this character that's got, probably 15 cantrips, a bunch of freebie spell slots. They got their Thaumaturge scrolls, their Thaumaturge talismans, their implements, their Esoterica. You jangle a lot when you move. Twin weakness, 2 action, mortal weakness or personal antithesis. Requirements: holding your implement and a weapon. You're using exploit vulnerability with mortal weakness or personal antithesis, and the target creature is within reach of both your implement and weapon. As you make an attack augmented by your Esoterica, you also press your implement against the creature, applying its weakness as your implement's energy sear the creature's flesh. Make a melee strike against the target of your exploit vulnerability. On any attack roll result but a critical failure, you press your implement against the creature, automatically dealing the additional damage from exploit vulnerability. That's that little, what was it, 2+ level or whatever. This is in addition to any damage from your strike, including the weakness the strike applies from exploit vulnerability. This counts as 2 attacks when calculating your multiple attack penalty. Basically, it's free bonus damage where it's like strike might be okay, but strike might be way better. And so long as you don't critically fail, you always get the burn. All right, so 12th level, Elaborate Scroll Esoterica. You get a 3rd level spell. At 14th level, you get a 4th level spell. At 16th level, you get a 5th level spell. You're borderline getting spell slots out of these scrolls now. Intensify Investiture. Free action once per 10 minutes. Your bond with invested items enables you to put more of yourself into them. If your next action, and people are going to make fun of me for stumbling over my words occasionally. If your next action is to activate an invested item that has a saving throw DC, you can use your Thaumaturge DC instead of the item's DC if it's higher. Hey. Where's that thing? Cursed Effigy. I call that a combo. So, Shared Warding. Esoteric Warden from way back. You ward your allies from attacks of your foes whenever you apply those protections to yourself. When you gain a status bonus to AC and saves from Esoteric Warden, choose to grant the same benefit to all allies in 30 feet. I'm telling you, this is like a great defensive, or a great buffing class if you aren't someone who likes doing spells. You can do a lot of buffs out of this thing. So Thaumaturge's okay. I should have looked up how to pronounce this word because I think this feat's weird and cool. So you've claimed an area or location as your granting you the ability to ward and protect it. When you select this feat, choose an area of no more than 2,000 square feet. You must legitimately own the area, or if it's a public area, you must lay claim to the area without anyone contesting it. Once you've chosen your... It's automatically protected by an arcane private sanctum spell with an unlimited duration, heightened to half your level rounded up, and using your Thaumaturge DC in place of the spell DC if necessary. Additionally, your is attended by 3 unseen custodians as a successful unseen custodian ritual, and 1 object in the area gains an elemental sentinel as a successful elemental sentinel ritual. So I couldn't tell you what those 2 rituals do, actually, because I honestly haven't really read up on a lot of ritual magic, but I like the idea of a Thaumaturge just being able to declare this area like their base. I think it's really cool. I don't know if I would pick it over more scrolls, though. Or even the Intensify Investiture. Yeah, there's a lot of really good feats in this class that I like a lot. So, Esoteric Reflexes, an implement that grants a reaction. Your bond with your implement is so strong that you can use their reactive abilities almost by instinct. At the start of your turn, you get an additional reaction, which you can use only for the reactions granted by your implements. Love it. I absolutely love getting that. That's like the Bastion's quick shield thing. Free reactions. Gotta love it. All right, Grand Talisman Esoterica. You've completed your journey in studying esoteric talismans, gaining the ability to place multiple talismans on an item. Normally, affixing more than 1 talisman to an item causes the talismans to be suppressed. But when you activate a talisman, you can treat one item you're working on, or specially treats one item you're working on, allowing you to have 2 active talismans at once. This special treatment ends if you use a fixed talisman to treat a new item with this ability. That's phenomenal, by the way. Talismans, like I said, they're not over the top amazing, but free talismans are great. And 2 of your free talismans on one thing is even greater. So Trespass, Teleportation, Reaction, Prerequisites, you have Exploit Vulnerability. Requirements, you're benefiting from it. Trigger, the target of your Exploit Vulnerability is within 120 feet and uses a teleport effect. So, you can hunt your foe to the ends of creation. You teleport along with the enemy, appearing the same direction and distance from it as you were before it teleported, or in the nearest unoccupied space your destination is occupied. And the allies affected by Share Weakness or Ubiquitous Weakness, if you have those abilities, can spend their reaction to teleport along with the enemy. If they're within 120 feet of the enemy, and choose to do so. Fun, potentially stupid, dangerous. Because, like, if it's a big bad and they're like, I'm getting away, and you're like, I'm going to chase you, you have like 3 or 4 other people who are like, did the Thaumaturge just leave? I wasn't under the shared thingy. Uh-oh. Or if you're with a battle buddy and you're doing the shared weakness, then it's actually not as bad. But yeah, it's kind of funny that could happen. All right, 16th level, Implements Flight. You get a fly speed equal to your land speed. This isn't under the effects of the fly spell necessarily, but you can fly with your implements. This is the sort of like the paired link ability where you give the person your friendship necklace. This is the sort of payoff for it, is 7-part link. Many traditions hold that the number 7 is significant. By exchanging pieces of a 7-part set of Esoterica, you create a magical web by which your allies can affect each other at a distance. When you use paired link during your daily preparations, you can exchange linking Esoterica with up to 6 willing allies, each giving a piece with yourself. In addition to normal effects of paired link, if a linked ally casts a spell with a range of touch, they can link it through the other allies. Basically, you can do your touch spell things through your entire team, which is pretty neat. Sever Magic, 2 actions, you're holding your implement. It is a dispel effect with your implements. Grand Scroll Esoterica at 18. You've completed the third and final step of your simulation of Scroll Esoterica, granting your daily scrolls incredible power. In addition to your daily scrolls from your other 2 feats, you get a single scroll that's 6th level, and at 20th level, you get a single 7th level spell. That's borderline like an archetype's worth of magic, by the way, in your class. And you can go get your archetypes, too. Like, I mean, yeah, granted, I think they actually all line up with the archetype spellcasting for 12-18. So, yeah, you probably are going to pick the archetype spells. But still, it's like an archetype's worth of feats in your own class. So Implements Assault is the 3-round action that's the 30 feet Death Blossom, but with implements. An Intense Implement is your 3rd implement gets the Adept effect, letting you have your 1 fully realized Paragon implement and then the 2 Adept implements. 20th level, Ubiquitous Weakness. You have Share Weakness. You've nurtured your bonds with your comrades, allowing you to share the benefits of your Esoterica. When you use Exploit Vulnerability and choose Mortal Weakness, select any number of values within 30 feet of you. Their strikes apply the weakness from the Mortal Weakness in the same way your strikes do. Benefit ends when you stop benefiting from Exploit Weakness. Since this effect depends on magically strengthening your bond with your allies, only allies who develop a rapport with or basically your besties can do your Mortal Weakness with you. Unlimited prerequisites. Thaumaturge. When you move you can move your here and there, bringing it wherever your journey takes you. Your expands to a maximum of 10,000 square feet. Once per day, you can call your 4th, which takes 1 minute. This has the effects of Resplendent Mansion, except that it conjures your from its previous location with all the benefits of Thaumaturge's Demons in addition to those of the spell. Most people will claim a new area with the same restrictions as Thaumaturge's Demonsni. And finally, Wonder Worker, your legendary in Arcana, Nature, Occultism, or Religion. Thaumaturge's path culminates in working wonders. Once per day, you can align your Esoterica to cast a spell of 8th level or lower that takes 1, 2, or 3 actions to cast. Spell must be common or one you have access to. You can choose a spell of any tradition for which you're legendary with the associated skill, Arcana Arcane, Nature Primal, Occult Occultism, and Religion Divine. Use your Thaumaturge DC in place of any necessary spell DC, and your Thaumaturge class DC -10 in place of any necessary counteract modifier or spell attack modifier. You get, as a non-spellcaster, a spell. Amazing. No, class is really cool. I don't even really play charisma classes, and I think this class is really awesome. They did a great job on creating an item-based charisma martial that can do support, it can do offense, it can do defense. It has a lot of fun things in its feat lists. It's like an item master, and you don't even need to play it like that. It can easily multi-class too, because while there are certain feats that are super strong, I don't think any of them are like super required. There's no like powerful alchemy in here. There's no megavolt, gigavolt in here. So like, at least to me there isn't. I think the class just works great out of the box. It works great with its implements. And yeah, I kind of think that if you want to, I think the obvious way to do it would maybe be a martial, where you get that like dread martial or inspiring martial aura. I think the Regalia gives you a status bonus to damage, so maybe you want inspiring martial. You're already a charisma character, so you can jump to any of the charisma casters. Bard for more support, sorcerer for more blasting, oracle maybe for stuff. By the way, Oracle is a great class on its own, and I want to do an overview video of it because it's really complicated, and I like complicated things. So yeah, I also think it's really easy to pick up. Like it doesn't have spells, so you don't have to go referencing spell lists. Your implements do what you think they would do. They're not that weird. I think only the mirror is weird. So they feel very natural. So Thaumaturge, really love the design. It's like A+ tier design. Power level, no idea. I don't care about power level that much though. But yeah, as it's designed, I think it's great. I didn't actually read the Thaumaturge multiclass, but it does something that I think is going to make it not that great. So, the dedication, you need 14 charisma. You've uncovered basic thaumaturgy. You become trained in a Thaumaturge DC. Choose an implement. You gain use of the Glimpse Vulnerability, which is a special version of the exploit weakness thing that's right here. And you gain a few Esoterica, allowing you to use Esoterica actions. You become trained in your choice of Arcana, Nature, Occultism, or Religion. If you're trained in all of those, you choose a skill of your choice. And you gain Glimpse Vulnerability action. Which is Esoterica Manipulate once per round. You're holding your implement. You glimpse a hidden vulnerability and strengthen it to aid you. Select a creature you see until you glimpse a vulnerability again. The target gains weakness 2 against your unarmed and weapon strikes. So you get a baby version of the weakness exploiting stuff. You don't gain an implement ability. You gain the implement, you don't gain its benefits. It's like the Inventor, where you gain the innovation, but you don't gain any abilities on it. I think that immediately makes this kind of a weak dedication. The basic and advanced thaumaturge are your feat things. You do get the implement initiate at 6, which lets you use the initiate benefit of the implement. But it's like, I think that's too little too late, honestly. And then your magical knowledge only applies to... Whoops. That was a D20 falling on the ground. Yeah, I got D20s on my desk. Your magical knowledge only applies to these 4 knowledges, unlike other skill classes that apply to skills. Like the Investigator archetype, you can get the Master Expert thing going in just skills. Same thing with the Rogue. So it's like, yeah, I think that's not that great. And then you can get, Master and Will if you really want to. But again, it's like, it's not perception, which is the, like, again, Investigator can do perception with that ability. But yeah, it's like equivalent ability. But yeah, I think maybe the multi-class isn't that great. I think it's a great class to multi-class out of, or not. That's up to you. I personally think it's a great class that can jump out of itself. But I don't think it works that well vice versa. And that's fine. That can happen. Certain classes, like the Psychic, great on its own, could probably multi-class really well, but also, because it's a caster and casters can multi-class really well, but also multi-classing into it is really good because you get the amped cantrip and you get your spell casting. So it's like Thaumaturge, great class on its own, probably a little weaker on the dedication, at least to me, unless someone can point out a reason that it's not. Really great classes though. I would say this book too, its layout is not good. It's the one complaint I have about Dark Archive is the chapters are all laid out by theme, which is fine, but I'll point this out in the chapter select up here. Like the gear and feats and spells and all of that is like mixed in with GM stuff and like the adventures that are presented in the book, and it makes it hard to be like, okay, I need to go look up that one thing, that one spell. Where is it? Oh, is it a deviant spell or is it a time spell? And then it's like you have to go digging through the book to find it. Like, spells aren't in the spell section. They're scattered throughout thematically, which on some level, it's fine. It's experimental. I think what's in here is great. I think maybe Friday I'm going to go over the archetypes. It has maybe one of my favorite archetypes in the form of the Mindsmith. And the Time Mage is awesome too. And like the Chrono Skimmer is cool. It's like basically Tracer from Overwatch. But yeah, I think yeah, I think the book is just ordered kind of in a mess. That's my only complaint about it. Otherwise, this book's great. As with all the Pathfinder 2.0 books, it's been fantastic. Classes are great. I didn't actually think I'd like the Psychic. Turns out I really love it. And Thaumaturge I thought was really neat in the playtest, and I was like, but it's neat, but I don't know if I like that idea. And then it turns out I'm like, oh man, check this out. You could do this and this and that and this, and yeah, really cool. Oh, and I think my last note here is I play intelligence classes mostly. I am kind of pining to play an investigator, even more so now that I could have an investigator paired with a thaumaturge, and someone pointed this out on Reddit somewhere that you can basically do Mulder and Scully, and I kind of really want to do that now. But yeah, I still think it's a really cool class that's fun and flavorful and stuff. Even though personally I'm probably never gonna play a thaumaturge, but still really like it. All right, it's gonna be 2 videos thrown on YouTube. I think I'll maybe put them up tomorrow or Friday. I'm gonna try to force myself to do it because it's gonna require a little tweaking on the editor on Twitch to do it. But I think I'm gonna try to force myself to do that for tomorrow and Friday. And then yeah, I normally don't stream on Fridays, but I think I'm gonna do the archetypes on Friday. Because there's a lot of really, really cool stuff in there that I want to go over. So yeah, that's going to be a night stream though. So thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and I hope you guys could put up with me talking for 4 hours and 20 minutes, almost straight. I actually think I did okay this time. The last couple times I've done this, I was very stumbly with my words. Next, class overview. I might do my magus. I might do my boy. So we'll see. But anyways, thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I'll be back tomorrow for gaming, probably with John. TMNT, Shredder's Revenge, or Elden Ring, or both. So have yourselves a great night, and I'll see you guys next time. You big nerds.